goes on. I like to pretend like I don't know the buttons. Oh my God, the button's coming on. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Tellman and Fellman show. My name's Harris Fellman, and that guy over there.
I'm Tellman Knutson. Welcome to the show. We've got Jonny Andrews as our special guest today. And Harris says something very, very, very special prepared to read to you.
I asked ChatGPT to create a bio based on some info that Jonny gave me, and I asked it to do it in a sports announcer personality. And just for fun, I said do it in a flamboyant sports announcer, and then I came up with a couple of ideas on my own. So I co-wrote this with ChatGPT. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to hustle. Hold on to your hats and glasses because we're diving into the fabulous world of Jonny Andrews. Jonny's a true dynamo, lighting up the entrepreneurial arena for over two decades. Jonny has been the secret weapon behind creatives and entrepreneurs worldwide, empowering them to share their stories, scale their businesses to dazzling heights. And as the mastermind behind Scale Your Hustle, which we'll talk a little bit about today, he's the guru guiding go-getters towards financial freedom and success. But hold on to your hats, everybody, because Jonny doesn't stop there. He's founded the International Charcuterie Association, whipping up the world's largest community dedicated to the art of the perfect platter, with over 604,000 members savoring every delicious detail. Delicious detail. A prolific course creator. He sold over 177,000 training programs, helping individuals spice up their skills and hit their goals. And let's not forget the 18,000, probably over 18,000 authors that he's helped get started with hundreds of them propelling onto bestseller lists like the New York Times and the USA Today. So gear up, folks, because it's Jonny Andrews in your corner. Not just a side hustle, it's the main event. Welcome, Jonny.
My word, man, that was delightful.
Wasn't it?
So I'm super stoked about this. Is the charcuterie thing legit? Is that a real deal?
That is a real deal. Yeah. What happened was, went back in the day when I was married. We started.
I remember when I was married.
I know, right? It's crazy.
I'm still married, but we're working on it. We're working not on it.
Exactly. No, so what happened was it was, right about that 2020 time. Y'all know what went down with that. And, she had this idea and I'm like, yeah, go make it happen. And so, I helped her get the thing set up. And then very bizarre story we can talk about, but I was the Tiger King during that time online. So some friends of mine, anyway, long story short, but came back and all of a sudden there's
hang on a second.
What?
Let's not just triple over that because Tellman probably doesn't realize. So Tellman, you remember Tiger King on Netflix?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clearly Jonny wasn't that guy. But Jonny
Right.
had something to do with it. So what do you mean by that when you say I was the Tiger King?
So, obviously he's in jail for all sorts of fun things. So
I didn't know that the Tiger King was in jail. I don't really follow. I'm completely.
Neither do I, which is amazing.
Tiger King. I know that much,
Right.
but yeah.
Well, so, okay. This gets kind of into all this stuff. So, my God, man, you got to ask questions. It's like layers upon layers.
Layers upon layers.
Yeah. So, okay. Basically, this gets back to the days of yore when I'm like, you know what? I think I want to make sort of a shift in my professional business because there's nothing wrong with making money, selling how to make money to people. But I'm like, I want to be a little bit more real with this.
More. Yeah.
And so it's like, and I'd already done a bit, but I'm like,
what are we talking about now? How far
we're
back?
right around 2010 at this point.
Okay. Not that far back. Not that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, what can I do here? And that's where, I was sitting at the kitchen table and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? I really like to write books and stories when I was a little kid. What if I get back into that? And so randomly decided to fire up this little thing around vampire books.
Right. Now I remember this.
Right.
This. Yeah.
Now it ended up taking off. It ended up, and over a long time, the biggest paranormal romance fan site on earth. And launched a subscription box, all this other kind of stuff. Actually, I'm in the process of creating a course again after all these years about what I did, because then I created a system around that and just cookie cuttered it out. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up and how this ties into the Tiger King, don't worry, I'm not leaving you all hanging, was there was a fellow that we were friends with down here who happened to come into a bit of money. And before he went and accepted it, he moved to Texas. All right. Because, no state income tax. And it was a bit of money. And so let's say that would have been a nice hefty chunk taken out of his stuff. Well, he's at a drunken golf outing one evening. And to give you an idea, like his neighbors are Hanson, the band, the guy who owns the company that makes 85% of the cosmetics globally. Basically, it's like every athlete you can imagine, it has a place in this. It's like $100,000 a year just to golf, and it's a resort kind of thing. So anyway, another level of person, let's put it that way, that kind of A-lister kind of thing. So he's at this drunken golf outing and ends up meeting a dude, and after God knows how much Jameson, he, strikes a deal with him. So he wakes up the next morning, rolls over, looks at his wife and goes, "You're never going to believe what I did." And she's like, "Do you even know?" So I guess this guy was in the process of buying the rights to the Tiger King brand. And somehow they ended up weaseling their way into it, but he had no idea what to do. And he's like, and so I get a call from Lisa that day. She's like, "You are not going to believe what my husband did. Are you ready?" Now, at this point in time, I worked with a lot of crazy authors and like paranormal erotica stuff. So I'm like, "Listen, you have competition for that statement, but
right.
batter up. Let's go for it." Okay.
Paranormal erotica.
Yeah. Like we're talking. Well, if you've ever read those books about like Bigfoot erotica, it's a thing.
I haven't. I believe
I saw the movie Ghost. I mean, what's a big deal?
Well, let me just tell you that and Japanese tentacle porn. It's all a thing. So yeah, what happened was she's like, "All right, let me tell you what happened." And the reason she called me is she's like, "Well, let's call this Jonny guy. He does strange things on the internet with weird people. He can," and it was because they were kind of enamored with this vampire thing because they saw that it was reaching, anywhere from 20 to 48 million people a month and all this stuff. And they're like, "Do you know what to do here?" And I'm like, "Well, is it an engaged audience?" And it's like, typical questions. I'm like, "Yeah, I think we got a little something here." So to kind of like shrink time on that, they're like, "All right, let's pitch the dude an idea." I'm like, "All right."
So which dude? Like where a producer?
No, he was actually a guy who made a Herculean buttload in real estate.
Okay.
And so he was just looking to diversify and that kind of thing. And so this was something he was going to buy. Now he didn't know, he was just going to buy the brand because it was at that time, it was the biggest conversation on earth, for like this brief 15 minutes of fame kind of thing. And
Tiger King.
Yeah, Tiger King. It was super crazy. So they bring me into this. I put together like a pitch deck, let's call it, and basically said, "Hey, here's what I think we can do." And then throughout that process, I got to meet some of these folks remotely. And I'll tell you something, you might not know this, but I don't think they were faking it. It was like,
you're saying Netflix actually tried to make them look good.
That was a tall order, let me tell you. And it was definitely a thing. So what ended up happening was kind of like breathed life back into this ecosystem. Ended up shaking loose about $100,000 in the first 45 days of like the initial buy-in royalties for sponsorships and stuff like that. And which I don't even know how much that's going to play out too, and that kind of thing. And so if you remember that part where there was a bus that they had painted with his face on it, like there was Trump's face and then Joe's face, and they drove from Texas to DC.
I remember Tellman.
I feel like that was in like the commercials and the trailers. Like I feel like that was something I actually saw. Like maybe in one of the trailers.
Yeah. So then Eric Good, who was the producer, he's like this billionaire hotel mogul, showed up because I had flown to Texas a bunch of times. We just did a bunch of stuff in this, and he came out and they filmed probably for 5 hours over there, and then the only 15 seconds that made it into the actual thing, it's like if you watch the first 15 minutes of episode 1 on season 2, there is a scene in there where you see these extremely tall blonde people talking to Dylan, who's at the time was Joe Exotic's husband, about customized anal bleach. I'm not kidding you. This was the thing. And I am right.
I remember that because I used the same. Oh no.
Exactly. So there you go. That's how vampires led to Joe Exotic.
Okay. Well, let's try to get back to the actual. So,
Well, hold on.
No.
What's the pitch that you gave them? I want to hear what the idea was that you thought you could do, like marketing terms. What did you actually decide? Like, you don't have to go into how it all worked or whatever, but like,
please say squeeze page and direct response.
Yeah,
3
were you
times
doing a Facebook group? Like what did you do?
Well, basically what it was, so it was a wide audience, obviously, that was all predominantly based around Joe and that kind of thing. And so the goal was to really drive a lot of merch sales with that, and also the sponsorship thing.
That's what I was going to ask. Where is all the money coming from in this particular move, right?
Right. So basically what ended up happening was, I'm a big fan of what I call minimum movement, maximum impact. And I learned, this is something I developed whilst homeless and then hit with identity theft, as, my early birthing story into the internet marketing thing goes. Where it's like, I don't need a whole lot of, upfront capital to make things work. You know what I mean? Because there's very specific things that it's like, if you do it, it's, if you remember the 3 C's, right? It's like content, conversation, and conversion. That's it. That's all you have to do. And it's never changed. And I doubt that it ever will, because bots don't buy booty shorts or whatever you want to say. And so what the model was,
once they're sentient, they will.
They might. You never know. They might be like, "Oh, I think I'll strap myself into some Fellmans." And it's, but that's the kind with the hairy cod piece kind of thing. So what it was basically, I set up a kind of like an adjacent agency, if you will, to work with this stuff, and use the agency as kind of like a buffer between the Joe brand and the actual direct response marketing stuff. Because when you get into these wide open places, you never know how they're going to respond to that, And so I ended up building a list. I think it was over 35,000 people in a matter of a couple days with this kind of thing. Did it with Yeah. So it was an email list, which then led to a heightened e-commerce sales, which then led to what I call shaking the tree, because I'm like, I know there's money out there, but I don't know where it is, because I'm not that familiar with his ecosystem. In other things, if I'm more familiar with the market, I can be like, oh, well, the money's over here, dudes. Let's go get some. Right. And this, I'm like, I don't know, just kind of shake the tree and see what falls out. And that's what led to the initial, like 45 days later, there's $100,000 in payouts. And people have licensed, not sponsorship, it was licensed. That's the word I was looking for. And then started to leverage that into sponsorships and different things like that. And so that's kind of how the money played out. And so, I wasn't looking at what happened after. So I don't know how much was made with the actual licensing. Yeah. I'm guessing probably a decent chunk, because they did air season 2 and it had a little blip of popularity.
And there was some sort of follow-up as well. And, he definitely stayed in the news. When you have that big of a following, probably going to jail doesn't help a lot, but it doesn't help in the longevity.
On it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, it sounds super interesting. Let's see if we can get back to where we got off. Where did we were going down the charcuterie trail.
Yeah, I want to hear more about charcuterie.
Your wife at the time wanted to get into charcuterie. What did you do? So what is for the straight men on the call? Oh, that's you guys. Oh, that's all of us. What is charcuterie?
Hold on. Charcuterie is like one of my true loves. This is why I'm so interested. Like, you could have given me all sorts of other topics and it might have been interesting, but we're talking about building amazing cheese. And I say we
Zagruder effect you and the audience. We'll come back to that in a second. Johnny, how did you get started in internet marketing?
How did I get started in internet marketing?
All right.
Geez, man. That would be a matter of necessity, it would appear. Because so I was living in an office, homeless at the time. Out of my 2001 Honda Civic kind of thing, and ended up I was about to close a little group of real estate deals that would have set me up pretty decently. I get a call from the underwriter that it's like, hey, you're late on your mortgage payments. And obviously I didn't say it, but I'm thinking to myself, dude, I don't own a home yet. We're in the process. And it turns out that a fellow named Rodrigo Lopez, which is common enough that I can say the name and it won't hurt anybody. And I won't tell you the address, but I do remember it because, as Tony Robbins says, You know, if you want to create a memory, you got to take emotion. And I'm like, ah! You know what I mean? And so it was like, ah. Well, it turns out like this thing, this whole like, you know, having it all fail and being impoverished and stuff. Like the homeless thing was fine, but it was like the failure. That was really the icing on the devil's cake. But it was crazy. So it's like I finally accepted the fact that had happened, and I got the best sleep of my life. Like it was unreal. But what happened was I had to overdraw my bank account by like $200 to, you know, back then you could afford gas with that amount of money, and drive to my folks' retirement.
Wait, can I ask you a question? Overdraw your bank account. Now, I'm gonna admit to a crime. I'm gonna ask you if you did it in the same way that I did. When I was in college, many times I would go to the ATM. You could do this. Go to the ATM machine, and I would deposit a piece of paper and say that it was money. And then they would say, "Oh, you deposited 300. Okay, well we'll let you have 150 of it." Okay.
No, I never did that. Thank you. Yes, okay. No, I'm not a big fan of ATM fraud, but that's okay. Yeah, so they
caught me. They caught me. They caught me and kicked me out of the bank. So I've admitted to a crime that I was already caught for, but I was a desperate college
student.
You've
done your debt to society. I get it. Yeah, so I crashed down there for about, I don't know, 2 months or something. You know, I get very stern lectures about, you know, consistent employment and things like that, which, you know, obviously whatever. But then got back there, and long story short, ended up having another business fail. It was actually pretty innovative for the time, but that thing kind of went south.
Hang on a second. So how long were you working from your car / an office?
Well, fun story. I thought it was going to be like 3 months, and it turned out to be a little over a year, which was a little too long to be that uncomfortable. They're like, you know, because you hear every sort of guru that is trying to emulate Goggins being like, embrace the suck. And there is a bit of truth to that, but like there comes a point where you kind of want to have the ability to have a consistent warm shower and a place to sit that doesn't also have a steering wheel and a stick shift. I don't know. Call me crazy, but I think it's the little things.
Hey, Johnny, we you know, this is not required, but if you wish, we did not take a few minutes before we went live to have you stream to your audience. So if you want to stream the rest of this episode to your audience, there's a button in the upper right-hand corner, I think. It says stream to your audience, where you can hook in some socials. Again, not required. Normally we do it before we go live, and Harris and I both forgot today.
Yeah, and somehow mine was only streaming to one platform. So since you mentioned it, I'm going to do that. So Tellman, while he's doing that, why don't you talk about what you and I are working on together really quickly?
Oh, this is a perfect time for a commercial break. I would love to. So over the years, Harris and I have had entirely email driven businesses, right? For the last 20 years, but different types of businesses. But at the end of the day, we both have completely email driven businesses. And as it turns out, the way both of us had our biggest wins and our maximum growth was by doing virtual summits and getting together with a whole bunch of people in our industries who want to collaborate, want to work together, and want to get in front of a lot more people. So we are launching Automatic Audience, the virtual summit system. And we have a boot camp coming up where you're going to be launching your own virtual summit in your own market or niche for your new or existing business. In 90 days, you're going to get up, you're going to get running, and you're going to build an audience and list from scratch. Super responsive, super connected. You're going to be making money 25 different ways if you implement everything we tell you to do. So if you're interested, type boot camp into the comments below and send me or Harris a direct message and let us know you're interested in chatting about the boot camp, and we will get on the phone with you in the next few days. Or
soon we'll be able to give people the course. Soon we'll be able to give people the course instead of jumping straight to the boot camp, which I'm really looking forward to. It's a little bit easier entry for people. Johnny, did you get something streaming or you?
Yeah, well,
okay,
I'm in the process of actually hooking up a couple because it doesn't seem to be giving me limits. And as you know, I'm a big fan of pushing the limits.
Okay, yeah, it should only let you do 2 unless you own a membership, unless you have a StreamYard membership, which I don't know. Let me see. Let me try to do a third one then. I think it's just going to let you add it, but it might not let you stream the third. Yeah, I think it's only going to let, if you're not a member, if you're not a paid member.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I have reached
My limit.
Of
my
2.
limit.
Okay.
There
Well,
we go.
hey, for anybody just joining us on Johnny's stream, welcome. This is Harris Fellman and Tellman Knudsen from the Tellman and Fellman Show. We're interviewing Jonny, who you know if you just joined us on his page, on his stream. Rory Stern says Jonny Andrews has the best stories ever.
You are an
hello,
excellent
Rory.
storyteller.
There we go.
You know, I do admit
Yes.
you're an excellent stuff, and we have a really great comment in from Jeff Levine from Silk City Hot Sauce. Best part of waking up is Tellman and Fellman in your cup. Don't forget it.
There you go. It's a little.
Don't forget it.
little coffee reference. Folgers. It's a Folgers reference.
Never heard one before. My God.
You never heard Folgers in your cup? That's the best part of waking up.
Oh yes.
So
okay.
So what year was it? What year was it that you got started in internet marketing? And how did you get? But you somehow had access to an office. Does that so you had the car in the office? So
yeah,
you did have internet access.
All right. So next time you walk into your bathroom, look at the surface area occupied by your toilet, and that's about the size of that office. So let's not pretend that it was epic. It was not.
But you weren't having to work from. Weren't having to work from the car on a laptop on your lap most of the time. You at least had a hole that you were able to, a dark cave that you were able to work from that had.
I do like my dark caves.
Yes. Absolutely. So was that 2000? Was that a reference to the X? Anyway, so 2004. You what did you do?
That's where I had kind of gone off on my own in the real estate mortgage kind of thing. What's funny about that is, at least in Illinois at that time, the reason I loved doing mortgages was because you needed more licensing to cut hair than to give somebody $500,000 in money and a house. It was hilarious. I was like, how is this possible? Which then led to a bunch of problems. And so I can get into stories about that, but that's probably a little off topic with the marketing thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was, kind of flirting at the time with the idea of making money online with the Googles and the clicks and the things. And I was starting to understand finally like the concept of leverage. And I was like, oh, okay, I see how this is working out. And honestly, I sucked at it. It was absolutely a tragedy in every conceivable way. Because
on the real estate side.
No, that was punctuated by, part of the problem is when you chase two things at once, you tend to get neither of them. What do they say? Bird in the hand's better than two in the bush. So I'd done decently with some investment stuff. I'd done decently closing deals. I was a really good salesperson, but I was shifting my focus. And so that was kind of giving me this, the shiny object syndrome kind of thing, and so while I'm working on these real estate deals that I wanted to close, because there was a couple of different properties that I'd, been accepted to buy and stuff. And so that's what I was in the process of doing. They were investment properties that had cash flow. And so I'd put up pretty much all of the money that I had left to get those things out, and did not work out in my favor. But yeah, it was a very unique thing. And then with the business that I started, it was a friend's idea. He's like, well, you're the only entrepreneur I know. So I'm like, I'm sorry, but looks like we don't really have that great of a track record here. And what ended up happening was it was a website way before its time kind of thing, where you could get local quotes from auto repair shops if your car was screwed up. And I'll tell you, like, the public loved it. I was on a ton of different talk radio shows. I was in like 20, like the front page business section. I think I figured out how to do syndication with these guys. And so it ended up getting picked up by like every Daily Herald, I think the paper was. Front page business section. That's where I learned, hey, get a haircut before someone takes your picture. Remember that Bigfoot romance I talked about earlier? It was you. Oh my God. It was brutal. I actually, someone sent me a picture of it and they're like, hey man, is this you? I'm like, oh God, should I even admit this? It looks awful. It was like if Albert Einstein in his early 20s had gotten beat up in a bar fight and then electrocuted. It was just not okay.
Nice.
But yeah,
anybody
that
that can deliver that photo to us right now, we will give you a free copy of Tellman Knutsen's My First List. We would love to see that photo and put it up on screen. But anyway, go ahead, Jonny.
Yeah, man, it was pretty crazy, but that thing ended up kind of crashing and burning a little bit, and we ran out of money. So let's segue into the internet marketing thing for real. And so what I had to get really good at really quickly was getting eyeballs on the website without spending money. So we had tried, like, we put all the money into the development of it, as I think most starting entrepreneurs do that.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even, marketing, what's that? And it's like, oh my God, how do we get people, like, here, we built the thing. Now, oh shoot, we have to sell this. That was a bit of a problem. But what it forced me to do is get really good at search engine optimization. And so ended up ranking for the keyword auto repair. But this is before, what do they call that? Latent semantic indexing or something like that, where they get geo-specific. This was before any of that even existed.
But you said this is like 2004?
Mm-hmm.
How old are you?
How old do I look?
I don't know, I'm 47. I got started in 2003 online. So I'm just, and then you also like shifted gears in 2010, which was when I stopped teaching internet marketing and shifted over to hypnosis. And so I'm just curious about how closely our timelines align.
Pretty spot on. Looks like you kind of jumped in a year before I did.
Yeah.
About it. Yeah. Yeah. It was nuts. And so, yeah, I just kept that up and optimizing. I mean, it was every stupid trick in the book. Like, you put the keywords you want to rank for as the same color as the back of the page. Like, don't do that. Anybody
you were about to say something about were you going to say that you ranked for auto repair beyond just globally? Your local? Just locally.
Globally.
Okay. Locally.
Yeah, globally. Cool. So it's like now
globally.
I'm getting, people from Omaha, Nebraska trying to get this thing to work. And I'm like, God damn it. It was so much to handle. And what was funny about that one of the lessons I learned, I think this is a pretty valuable one for anybody, is if you're going to try to do something on the interwebs, try not to piss off the people who pay your bills. Because what I learned was that the mechanics hated this idea, hated it. Public loved it, mechanics hated it. And
Why?
This was clearly a subscription service. Well, because they didn't want to. This was long before the concept of transparency and communication was like a mainstream thing.
Right.
Because what we were trying to do was educate them that you don't need to tell people exactly what is wrong with the car, but you can give them a series of hypotheticals so that they can actually get the impression. It's like, what must I demonstrate to be true in order for people to want to buy my stuff? You know what I mean? Where just kind of like show a level of humanity, because that was the biggest complaint that consumers had with that entire industry, was that I don't know what's going on. And then they show up and then these guys tell them whatever. And it was just kind of like, meh. And so this gave them a way to do that. And obviously the big thing was, you got to bring the car in so we can check it. Cool. Great. It should have been easy. It was absolutely not well received. So I did an interview with the predominant industry magazine at the time. Thought it went well. It did not go well. It did not go well at all. Oh man. And yeah, that came out and it was just an immediately like, let's light them on fire. I could almost hear.
Oh
like,
man, I've had that happen. It was brutal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
So that was
when you think it goes well and then they turn it on you. That's.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, actually, that also happened in the Joe Exotic thing. I can tell you that was.
So Jonny, how did you? When was your kind of entry into? So did you end up ever? I feel like maybe you ended up selling like how to do SEO or something. Like, how did you end up kind of in the info product?
Yeah, how'd you go into the direct
world? Let's just say even the Frank Kern, Charles Kirkland, you're friends with Charles and Alan Sultanic, and like
absolutely,
you're in this. And how did you cross paths with me? Really, like how did we? Because I had nothing to do with auto repair websitey things.
Right. Well, segueing into that part, the night was dark and there was rain pouring from the window. No, it was if I wanted to eat at this stage of my life, I had to figure out how to make money. Because, there was just nothing else going on. And that's where the Warrior Forum comes in.
Uh-huh.
So I had started selling, Warrior special offers. I'd figure something out and put together like a quick, little tutorial and then go and sell that for anywhere from like $7 to $20. Next thing you know, I've got enough to buy noodles. Woo! Well, it just so happened that evidently I was decent at some of this stuff, like figuring stuff out and coming up with, pretty decent and actionable SOPs. And so I just sort of leveraged that more and more and more. And then I started figuring out, wait a minute, there's these dudes out there doing these product launches. What if?
Right.
And so what I started doing was I would interview these guys and I would then post that interview along with my affiliate link and a couple of bonuses and stuff. And lo and behold, because I believe this was what they called Web 2.0 with the social bookmarking. Is that it? So I fire up to the top of the search rankings with this stuff. And I'd also use that to build,
What year?
Oh, geez. Now we're getting squishy. 2006-ish.
Yeah. So when you'd interview them, was it a video or audio interview?
Oh, definitely all audio. Yeah, I didn't want anyone
like
to
on a
see
bridge
where
line,
I was living.
like a teleconference line.
Yeah, freeconferencecall.com.
Yeah,
like
totally.
9
Okay,
times
so
out of
you
10.
do the audio interview
Mhm.
on free conference call, but then how did you get that in front of people? Like how did the
Well,
interview?
let me just for the audience's sake, like you guys have talked about things being in parallel. Like this is like the same year that Tellman started doing something very similar, and a little bit later I started doing it because I saw what Tellman was doing. So it's very interesting because it's you guys. Have you guys ever met beyond right now?
I think
Yeah,
we've
we're
met
very
at
briefly at a couple.
conferences, but
Yeah.
we haven't ever like really.
But not.
spent
But
time.
you didn't. You.
Like-
I'm actually. I had no idea that you started also with interviews, Jonny. I'm just learning that right now. So that's super interesting to me, and
Yeah,
also
what year
to
did you say?
2006.
It was like 5, 6, that kind of thing.
What
It was
was your- did
it
you
was
have a-
right around StomperNet.
Yeah,
time,
yeah. I
when
went. I went and hung out with the StomperNet guys and promoted the crap out of Stomper stuff, and was often a top affiliate for those guys, and vice versa with the launches. Right.
Mhm.
I met Colin Therio for the first time going down to StomperNet. He, then like speaking or something.
Mhm.
So wait, you were going to ask him earlier. How did he promote it? How did you get people to listen to the interviews, Jonny?
Hold on.
No, he wasn't.
Did you have a name for your interview series or what you were doing? Like, or was it just one-off interviews that you did and then?
It was typically one-off interviews. I didn't come up with a like an all-encompassing. If I could have done something like that, because that wasn't exactly like an unknown model,
Right.
Where you do like the secret to success, 37 interviews from powerful money making, like that kind of stuff. Like I could have done that, and I just didn't.
Yeah.
Because what I was doing was I was just growing this email list of people. And then right about that time, I actually did a sort of a mini launch, let's call it. And I think my first one, forgot about this. Oh, God. So I was at the time dating something of a hypochondriac. And also she liked attention. And whenever I was doing something like this, she was not a fan of that. And so for my very first launch, she ended up going into the hospital to get like some exploratory surgery that I'm like, why now? Like, has this been a problem the whole time? We were dating for like a year. I'm like, whatever. I ended up launching my first product, and I'm not kidding you, on a PlayStation Portable in a hospital waiting room. I'm literally sitting there trying to type an email to affiliates with like an X, a triangle, a circle, and a square.
Hey, I remember you could kind of like somehow get to the your own right. You'd go to I don't even know if it was Gmail then, but like you could get to a web browser inside of a gaming console.
Right. I did that. Yes, I did that. It's like, oh my God. But it ended up making, $2,000, which, if it made $1, it would have saved my life.
Right.
So it was like, oh, wow, this is really working. And that helped in a big way with because it built that initial, the bigger initial list. I might have had maybe 500 people from the interviews, which would help. So it's like my name was already landing on the launch leaderboards because it doesn't take much to crack the bottom of it. But it's usually the top 4 that are going to be the ones that you're like, wow, these guys are heavy hitters kind of thing.
So you had 500 people on your list? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe
buyers. They're all buyers. They all bought something, or they just opted in.
These
for
were these were like the guys who had bought the affiliate products at the time. And then after this, I think I might have bumped. I didn't sell that much. It was I probably sold less than 200 units of that. But now those were buyers of my stuff, which does make a difference. And so, because what I was doing at the time was to get, you were asking about the eyeballs on the interviews, like how did I get people to see that? Obviously I didn't have a ton of money to spend on anything. So I would SEO the living crap out of this stuff. And I would wait until maybe like an hour before their cart would go live. And then I would just go through, because I knew that there would be an initial bam in the rankings, but then Google would penalize it and it would drop again. But I knew I had 24 to 48 hours before that would happen.
Well,
right. So I'd wait to just before the cart went live, and then I would hit it all. So I would get the first 2 days of launch. I was usually 1 or 2 in Google under the product name and the guru name.
So you essentially found a way of SEOing your affiliate link by doing these content interviews.
I used Squidoo.
Oh,
Squidoo.
Nice, dude. Squidoo. Thank you, Seth Godin, right?
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Okay, cool.
All right. No, that's awesome. I mean, and when you were doing your interviews, did you invite your list to get on the teleseminar when you were doing the live interview, or was the interview?
No, I would always record them and hold on to them.
Pre-recorded.
And then did you sell their product at the end of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was holding on to the thing until I would launch it, right when the thing went live.
Right. So you would interview, like if Tellman had a launch, you would have interviewed Tellman 2 weeks ago, and you'd hold on to that so that, and as soon as somebody goes and searches who the F is Tellman Knutson, or what about such and such,
launch.
perpetual marketing machine.
What
about perpetual marketing machine? You'd come up number 1, and you'd have an interview, and on the end of the interview, you'd be selling. You'd have a link to
It would be like a mini sales letter that would recap what their offer was. So it's like you have the content up in the beginning, and by the way, this format has not changed. Where you have like the content up in the beginning, and then you've got, so basically it would be an advertorial.
So good. So essentially what we're teaching people with this whole with the virtual summit process is the power of collaboration with other people who have audiences through interviews, right? And we're pairing that with sales webinars, right? But like, it's the same basic principle. It's organized in a different way. And so I never developed any SEO skills. I still don't have any SEO skills. And so I really, really like that story about how you took what you had and just found a way of doing something really innovative and profitable with it. Like, it's a really, really, really cool thing you put together with that.
Thank you. Yeah. It was kind of fly by the seat of my pants in every conceivable way, because I had no idea. I had very little money.
Yeah.
Just what I was making up off the forum.
So you did that for a bit, and I know that you eventually had you had a pretty successful launch, a launch that made a whole bunch of money. Like what, Money Siphon, was that your first one?
I had a couple that actually. So I launched Money Siphon back in the day when those white page sales letters. Remember what I'm talking about? Where it's like a 3-dimensional white page.
3-dimensional.
No, you're
well,
talking
you could
about
see it was
the
like
border.
You could see
the border. It's
a
a
shadow border,
shadow fade border that kind of made it look like a white piece of paper, slightly lying on your desktop, kind of.
So the first version of Money Siphon actually taught what I had been doing in that thing we just talked about.
The interview and jump to SEO stuff.
Right. So that one did pretty well. I do not remember how much it did, but it was definitely like, a healthy 5. It was like, oh crap, wow, look at this.
I could make a year's income with this. Holy cow.
Oh,
correct.
Hold on.
Yeah.
When you were interviewing all these guys, were they all people that were launching on Warrior?
No, none of them were actually.
Okay.
Because I would even list my interview on Warrior. There was a place where there was like a product review thread. Maybe there still is. I haven't been there in forever.
Warrior Forum.
But,
I'm making that. I'm establishing the difference because Tellman knows I do like consulting for Warrior Plus, which came out of like doing better, the ability to do WSOs, Warrior Special Offers, better and with more. Right. And now it's kind of separated out where they're both their own thing. So I'm just trying to get the story straight in my head as well. So,
well, and it's funny because I keep coming back to this. It's like, a dog returning to its vomit. I'm kidding. But it's like, that keeps happening. So there was like a nice little healthy span of time where I would launch a product, So the first thing I did was all about affiliate marketing. The next thing I did was all about how to develop your own product. And then the next thing I did was like, hey, here's a done for you. And I know, Harris, you and I worked together on that stuff. And I had a done for you software thing. And the biggest problem with that was that it worked too well. It was funny because I'd gotten pretty good at paid marketing, social, all this stuff. And, because I had to figure it out. I'm like, oh, I guess I got to do this. And so I'd get kind of, gotten in there and got my hands dirty and been like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And then I would, promote these things. And then I just taught people how to do what I was doing. So it was usually just a couple of things that worked.
So that's kind of the inherent problem with business opportunity, especially online stuff to begin with, which is if you do something relatively automated or relatively easy, and then you teach 1,000 people how to do it, it stops becoming effective, right? Or it becomes, some of it becomes too effective, and then
depending on what it is, that can happen, right? It's not
right. Well, if you're teaching something that's based around like a temporary strategy or tactic, then yes, that's absolutely going to happen. Right. But that's, when it's kind of interesting when you look at the vampire stuff and then how I've segued out, because I've been doing that since 2011 and I haven't changed a stinking thing. Why? Why would I? It works. We'll get
to that. Yeah.
Oh, that isn't, because that's not based around like a single tactic. That's based around, a
foundational
human psychology that is then simply carried on the winds of social media and search engines. And these are fundamental realities that aren't going to change. And then what happens is, it's like, if I want to have another profit stream, what I'll do is I'll just connect. Like, so for example, I was selling, sponsorships in the email newsletter for years. And then I'm like, I think I want to try this print on demand thing. So I didn't start a print on demand business. I just went click and I connected a print on demand aspect to the existing ecosystems. And then what I call an eyeball wash, which is where I just let people see the offer. And if they liked it, they bought it. I think my conversions were garbage, but and spread out over time, it was like 125,000. It's like, great, awesome. That wasn't in a day. I'm not trying to say, oh, look at this, it was amazing. It was just another drip fed.
The print on demand, was it you took the newsletters, the newsletters you're doing and you made it print on demand, or you wrote books, or what? What are you saying?
Well, I've done all that. Yeah, no, this was shirts in this particular case.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like 2014 when that was really big. What was it? Teespring.
Yeah.
Launched. Yeah, Teespring launched, and there are all these people going, hey, here's how you can make $1.5 billion selling, I love my grandmother. Okay. I'm like, that sounds nice. Great. How about vampires? I wonder if they'll go for that. Turns out they do.
So you did print on demand vampire shirts is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, tapped into a bunch of stuff with that. But it was more than that, because by that time I'd created a skeletal structure for the entirety of what I was doing. And I was just stamping that out in, first of all, I did a bunch of different book genres. So I went from, paranormal to contemporary, from contemporary into like erotica. And then from that, I took it into something completely unrelated to books. And I went into like the busy mom space.
When you say I went into, you're saying you kind of created merch around books that existed, or
I created entire businesses. You
had a book. You wrote a book under a pen name, or?
This has nothing to do with any of that. This is just the business model. Like, so for example, I get bored a lot. And so I've written 17 books at this point, and only one of them was under my name. So what happened was, that was 2011. I wrote a book called How to Live Debt-Free and Wealthy. It took me 18 hours to crank that thing out. Launched it. It became the #1 book on Amazon for like business and whatever. So it was like, I don't know, I got a bunch of screenshots of it like on the thing. Sold oceanic buttloads of copies, so much so that I was able to get death threats. It was really cool.
Oh,
yeah. I was like, oh, this is nice.
I've made it.
Yeah, I know. I've made it. This is great. The Christian Coalition wants to kill me.
Right.
I'm super excited. I'm like Eminem. But it was super fun. And what happened was, I then, back to the Warrior Forum and the Warrior Special Offer, I created a course around that specifically. Here's what's funny. The vampire thing, I had set that up beforehand, just as like, I wonder. And then as that thing started to go, I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. And I'm trying to sell products to them and stuff, and it's not working. And I'm like, I don't even know. But I'd grown in, a micro email list of a couple thousand people. The page was getting to like 10,000 people. I'm like, I wonder. And so I went and sold sponsorships in the newsletter to indie authors. Ding, ding, ding. And so I hired someone from by the way, she still works with me today.
And when you
really
say
funny.
in the newsletter, do you mean the newsletter of people that were reading all the vampire stuff?
Yeah. So because I was a fan site,
Yeah.
I wasn't nailed down to any one author name or brand or anything.
Right.
I could talk about all of them very freely.
What was or is the website for the vampire?
Oh, I sold it and it's still going.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was ilovevampirenovels.com. It's still going today.
So
They've completely
total
remodeled it from where it was, but it's like,
Yeah.
that was the thing that I kicked off in 2011.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it was but the fun part about that was it's like you want to talk about like the typical ADHD getting distracted marketing dude kind of thing. That's what this was. I forgot I had done this.
Did you start a Facebook group to build this community?
No.
Like, what was the primary way that
the primary was just a basic page. In fact, the reason it's called I Love Vampire Novels is because if you remember Facebook ads at the time, the ad was the title or the headline of the ad was the title of the page you were promoting. So I had to do that. It was
so it was a Facebook page, is what you're saying. Facebook
right. It was.
No.
Exactly.
No, wait. Was it a Facebook page or a web page?
It was a Facebook page to start. I set up a web page like 15 minutes before I completely dropped it as a point of interest in my life.
All right.
And I had hired a lady who was just a fan, and she was like a super indie author. She hasn't done any books since then. She just kind of sat back and ran this thing for me. And I didn't look at it again for 2 years. And when I did, I was like, oh, something's here. It made like something to the tune of like $96,000 in sales across 2 years. And I was like, I had no idea.
Right.
Because what had happened was I had launched Perfect Publishing System at that time. And it started as a Warrior special offer and it went nuts.
It started as a WSO, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it started as a WSO. I would have to say, like, it made, in terms of total sales, in 2 weeks, it made $425,000 in 2 weeks. And I went and then turned it into like a more expensive course and did a bunch of stuff and blah, blah,
and
blah.
This is where you taught authors how to market their books or write their books or all of
this
that?
Was I had a very specific formula, and it was funny because I have to keep in mind, especially because I'm creating a product around how I've built these ecosystems. I got to keep in mind that when you use examples in what you're doing, people are just going to follow those things. And so the example I used in Perfect Publishing System were cookbooks. And then I showed them how, like, here's what you do when you write it and create it. Here's what people are looking for. Because what was happening at the time, and this was that there were a ton of these micro courses out there, but they were absolute crap. They were teaching people how to repurpose PLR,
right,
and publish it. And it was just, it was basically like hooking up a line of raw sewage into the KDP system. And I'm like, Amazon, there's going to be a backlash on this. Like today.
Right.
And I was right too. And so I actually, because I had launched a book, I'm like, hey, whoa, I'm like, people, listen, you don't need to publish 17,000 books. Just do one and make it not. Here's how you do that. And so what's crazy is I have all these shots from back then where people, just regular people were doing it. There was like a mother-daughter team who wrote this book. I think it was called Special Dinners for Two. And there's a screenshot of Hunger Games 1, 2, and 3, and then their book on the bestseller list. I'm like, welcome.
Overall bestseller.
Overall, total, all of Amazon. Yeah. It was absolutely crazy. And that wasn't like, they weren't the only ones either. There were people that were just, and they were killing it with this stuff.
You gave cookbook as example. So 90% of your people did cookbooks.
It was a lot. And what was really funny was one guy was like, I did what you said and I'm having trouble with it. And I had to do a video on this one. So what happened was this dude puts out these absolutely incredible books, and it was all around like Asian food. And the covers were incredible. The descriptions were amazing. I even bought one. I'm looking at it going, what's wrong with this? But he had so many books. And I kept clicking and clicking. By about page 6, I saw what the problem was. So it's like all these amazing Asian food books. And then it got into gay erotica. And I'm like, listen, man, you can do gay erotica. You can do cookbooks.
Choose a
But
lane.
not both at the same time under the same pen name. Please. Like, that's your problem right there. It was hilarious. You can do them both, man, but just not like, don't be you with both. Be someone else with the other one. So anyway, that was the issue.
Unless you're somehow managing to cross the audiences over successfully, in which case, cool.
Right.
You know,
But it's going very
Right. But the problem
Jerry
was, you know,
Seinfeld
like,
now. It's going to be like,
was
how
how
do
much
you
they're
say
doing, like,
erotica with
like-
Asian porn and watch television at the same time?
yeah, that's a very George Costanza moment.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
having sex, eating pizza, and watching sports. Yeah,
Right,
that's what
right,
that
right.
was.
Yeah. So, well, let's before we run out of time, Tellman,
That's
let's get back to charcuterie. Okay, let's fast
Mhm.
forward
we
into.
could get back to charcuterie, or we could just fast forward all the way to what you're doing now. Also, because I mean, you know,
Well, it's
Well, he
funny because I use charcuterie as an example with what I'm doing now.
hit it.
Because so what was happening at the time, so obviously 2020 was a special kind of year, and I've never seen anything like this before, so I come back from Texas doing the Joe stuff, and we had also segued into a bunch of skincare, had a bunch of like, you know, B and C list reality TV Netflix stars at this party. It is pretty crazy. You know, all up in this just ritzy kind of like, I don't know, 8,000 square foot mansion thing in a weird golf course with whatever.
In Texas?
In Texas. Yeah, it was an armed community kind of thing. It was pretty cool. I mean, it was honestly, it was a great time.
America.
Yeah. America.
Welcome
Yeah.
to the suite.
Oh yeah. No, it was absolutely a hoot. And this stuff is just cranking. You know, she's getting orders from like all over the place. And there's just, it was nuts. And I'm like, all right. I see. So I'd helped her start, obviously. And
your wife at the time, you helped her start the charcuterie. What was the charcuterie business? Was she just making it herself and delivering it to parties, or what do you mean?
Well, she would have her friends come over and help and stuff like that, you know, because it was nuts. But yeah, we would do it out of the house at the time. And, you know, so now it's like, you cannot do that. Just so you're, you know, aware. But like, you know, when all the government, right, legally, I don't think you could then either, but whatever. It's like it was how it was. We were technically an essential service because we're food and we're delivering.
There's a local woman around here who goes to all the local breweries and does charcuterie board workshops. So she brings all the stuff and like teaches you how to do it right and charges you $50 a person or whatever, and you make.
I actually have a whole course on how to do that. Yeah.
If you go to side your side hustle, what is it?
Scale Your Hustle. Yeah.
Scale Your Hustle. If you were to, I don't know if it's there right now, but like when I first started reconnecting with Jonny about a year ago, I went to Scale Your Hustle and I start watching this webinar that he had up, and I'm like, charcuterie, here's a great way to, and one of the ways to make money with charcuterie is by doing workshops rather than and then didn't you, well, you could get to it yourself, but I believe you guys supplied people that were doing workshops with food with the stuff, or is that
no, we had done a couple of things. So what was basically the catering business is what most people think of, you know, but it's very expensive to start. There's a ton of confusing licensing. People do it all the time and it's great, but you do need to dot the I's and cross the T's, especially with local law enforcement, or food regulations, which I kind of agree with. You don't want, you don't want to serve a bunch of moldy salami to, at a kid's
cheese
party.
Is fine. Moldy cheese is fine. It gets
right,
better
exactly.
with
it depends on the cheese, Harris. It depends.
There you go. So what happened was, we networked in with a bunch of event planners, and one of them was like, "Hey, can you do a virtual charcuterie class?" And she looks at me, and I'm like I'd never done anything like this before. So I had 2 weeks, and I'm like, I'm gonna really set the bar high. So I'm like, I'm gonna have a budget of $3,500. Never in my life have I done anything like this, and I was able to figure it out on how to create this multi-camera studio that would live stream in 4K to all these people. And then what happened was we boxed and shipped all the raw goodies, and including like these engraved boards, to 300 people across the world.
Refrigerated?
No, didn't need to. It's crazy. There's certain things that if you use them, they actually don't have to be. I know it's crazy.
So you sent types of cheese and types of salami and that kind of stuff that didn't need to be refrigerated.
If it's vacuum packed, it should be fine.
No,
like
no,
whenever I would buy, if I buy somebody
a
gift basket, it's not refrigerated. Similar
product. No, you can. I can see how it would work with certain things. That's cool.
So 300 people each paid $1,000 or $1
no,
or what?
No, I think we did 100 and something thousand on that one particular thing. But even like, for example, Facebook legal team hired us. And I'll tell you, that is quite the email to get. Because I was thinking, coming from the background that we all have, like you get something from Facebook legal and it's like, oh God,
you're in bad business. Yes.
Right. It's like something's going wrong real bad,
Facebook
now.
legal hired you to do charcuterie.
To do a virtual
charcuterie workshops. Oh, that's brilliant. By the way, at the same time, I was doing virtual magic shows. I probably didn't make $100,000 on one of them, but I definitely made more money doing magic in that holiday season than I have ever so far. Like,
oh, totally. Yeah. No, it's absolutely crazy what you can do with that stuff. So we built out the whole virtual thing and literally kicked everyone's butt in the industry with that thing because nobody else had the multi-camera, the high quality. People were saying like, oh my God, this is like a rock concert, but with cheese.
That's awesome.
And it's like I had a whole setup with this thing going.
That's cool.
And created a product on how to do, like, say, for example, the local ones, because the virtual ones, you need to have a special, background to be able to figure this stuff out. And so it's like, I'm waiting on that one. But the local stuff, like, so for example, if you want to bypass all the laws, you become a content creator because you can do it in your own home, and then you sell the local classes. So it's like, you can demonstrate what you need to demonstrate online. Right. And then you can network in with your local community, and you can do really well with that.
So if you're teaching it instead of being a caterer, basically.
Right. Absolutely.
If you're teaching it, you can teach it to a whole bridal shower worth of people. Well, we do need to bring the food in order to teach it.
Well, I'll tell you that this local woman, she uses Facebook events as her marketing tool. And she just goes around to all the local breweries. And she does these events, and they sell out every single time. Most of the time when I haven't been to one yet, because every single time, by the time I get around to like, oh, this looks like a cool thing to do, it's full. Yeah, and she's been doing it for a few years, So
it's very, 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 very easy to book these things out completely. Because then what we did was obviously rented commercial space, all that stuff. Had a couple of places where we moved to, and then segued that into opening up like a full blown restaurant, which is now like one of the most popular in the North Shore in Chicago. And it's all, it's not a charcuterie restaurant, but there is stuff there. It's like a really high end kind of thing. And so she'll do classes there, like on the slower nights, like a Tuesday, Wednesday, completely packed, absolutely completely packed.
Nice.
And then she'll also do like, remote stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, and so all of that happened because of vampires. Literally, all of this is because there is a business model with these vampires.
Core of all of this, what's it like? So I mean, I guess I get it, but like.
Spell it out.
Explain it to my teenage daughter who's definitely watching from the other room right now.
Content, communication, conversion. Those are the three pillars of all this stuff. Is basically what you do is you find a group of people who are ridiculously into and passionate around something. And the key indicator is that passion is fueled through the purchase, ownership, consumption of a particular commercial good or service or something, right?
You know what Joshua Schafrin called this in the first ever internet marketing home study course, NPOD? He called it, I like it, I love it, I want some more of it.
Basically, yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of like when you look at how to pick a niche, that's the one thing. Like everything else, whoever's teaching it, they're probably perfect on it. Add in a little bit of emphasis just on that element of it. And then also you realize that
let's use hot sauce as an example real
quick.
Because we have Jeff Levine, who we interviewed a little bit ago. And you did it with cheese, with not cheese, but with charcuterie.
Basically, yeah.
So how would it apply to hot sauce? So content, conversation, and conversion. How does what you're saying?
So the big thing to remember is that if you don't mind having someone else take the credit, you can make as much money as you want. Okay. So when we were talking about this stuff as like a faceless business, this is what I've been doing since 2011, before this was even really a thing, because I'd had enough people show up, because my list got to the point where it was like 214,000 people or whatever it was. I've literally had people show up at my house, and, I joke about it being in the bushes. They were like, I've had and all of a sudden now I'm married with 2 daughters. Hell no, we are not doing that anymore. And so I made a radical pivot. And I also, it's time to do that too, but I made a radical pivot where it's like, I'm not going to go be the dude. I'm going to help other people be the person. Right. So you take that concept. I didn't know. I'm like, oh, that's evidently this is going to work. But if you take that idea and you look at it kind of like a newsletter based magazine almost kind of thing, but the emphasis then is on the people who love this stuff. And what you do is you give them a place to talk about it and to thrive. So it's like our good buddy here at, Silk City Hot Sauce. He could not use Silk City Hot Sauce.
Right. That's not the focus. Don't make it about yourself. Right.
Exactly. You make this about like hot sauce lovers, chili heads or something like that.
Hot sauce fanatics.
Yep. Right. And then the whole conversation. And what's crazy, you can start the conversation. I mean, today you can use AI generated content to like seed it kind of thing as you get stuff going. But then what happens is you're going to start to elevate the people.
Yeah.
Right. And you start to find people who are going to be like really hardcore contributors to this. And very quickly this starts to happen. Because and I would say like a Facebook group is probably going to be one of the best places to do it now.
Even now.
Yeah. Like, and for example, I've never done a Facebook. Well, I can't say never. I've done a couple of smaller groups, but I now like the charcuterie group that I started is now like the biggest on earth in this industry. And it's, that was the first time I've ever done that particular thing. And it's just crazy. As long as you just let people be who they are, let them kind of celebrate this stuff, and then you blow some air under the skirt of the people who are really doing it, and you let them kind of like become happy and famous and whatever it is. And you're literally just elevating other people, and you're giving them the kudos. So it's not about me.
The members of the group, the community, basically.
So I mean, you're doing this with a community that is already naturally coming together around a topic and a common love. Brunson has done an outstanding job of doing that with his own ClickFunnels community that he created purposefully, right? But like, it's the same basic idea, is like really focus on your raving fans and like give them attention, right? Like give them opportunities to get attention, right? So so for you, so specifically in charcuterie, in hot sauce, in a Facebook group, what are some examples of the way that you would do that?
Definitely I would seed it. I would find probably mid-level creators, low to mid-level creators who are currently in the space, because you don't want to go directly to the big kids because they're not going to care. Right. And everybody knows about them or whatever it is. But, and again, this is the same thing that I've done.
People who are hungry. Literally.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like at this point, literally. And so you're going to find these people who are really starved for attention and want to put some hot sauce on it. And you go and you repurpose their content and you publish that stuff through your own ecosystems. Right. Now I'll do something where I'll run like a giveaway or whatever it is to really kickstart this crap. And again, been doing this since 2011. Same thing all the time. And what's funny in the author space, after I'd replicated this a number of times and I had like a fairly decent list of authors, I went and started an agency that would do this it's called Author Platform Rocket. And I think it did like 1.4 million in sales before I even put up the website.
Right.
Right. So it was like, I just emailed the list. I was like, hey guys, what's up? I'm the dude doing the things that you're paying money for. You want to give me some more money and I'll do some more things. And they're like, all right. Obviously it was a little more, eloquently put than that, but, that's all it really, that's all you do is you make it about other people, make it about them, let them shine, help them to shine. find people who are really at a, who are doing incredible work, but maybe aren't getting the recognition that they should be deserving of.
Right.
And again, I did the same thing with the Joe Exotic people, where it's like, okay, we're going to fire up some skincare stuff. And, because we knew the person that made like 85% of the skincare for, the global economy or whatever. Like, you want to slather your face? There's an 85% chance that this is the dude who owns the place that makes it. Well, we figured out how to do this. And I was like, well, I've got a way of getting influencers. And this is crazy. So my wife at the time was good friends with a person who had this software that literally was built from the CIA, where it's like after there was like, some sort of attack, let's call it, what they would do is look on social and then they would roll back the clock to see, okay, what sparked this? Where did these people come from? And so this ended up having a commercial application where they could look at brand launches and figure out, who had the biggest impact? And it was not the big names. They were these like micro and like nano local influencers who had the most powerful impact on this. So the guy, we were working with these dudes and we'd given them like $45,000 or something at the time. And when I rolled out how to, like, this whole thing about getting influencers, I ended up getting, I think, 186 of them, and they produced over 3,000 pieces of user-generated content. For some of them had anywhere from like 500 to 200,000 followers. And like the dude got so, like the guy we were working with got so mad, he like yelled at the CIA company and they gave him his money back. It was funny. So I was like, I didn't intend for that to happen.
So Jonny, you're about to come out with a new. It's been a while since you've come out with a public-facing how to succeed online.
And it's a very ironic one at that, because it's all about how to do the faceless business, and yet here I am. Like, let's try to justify that, right?
Well, but you don't have to have a faceless business to sell info about faceless businesses. And in fact, you're not. Funny. It's not a faceless business. You're the person teaching it directly. You could do it faceless if you wanted to, but what is the? I think I know that through doing some of these interviews and some talking to some potential students for what Tellman and I are doing, which is like the interview series stuff. Tellman is he's like, well, hey, if you're going to do interviews, you can't be faceless, right? You gotta man up and get and overcome your fear. But it's not just about for you. It's not just for your clients that you're looking for, your audience that you're looking for. It's not just about the fact that they like, oh, I don't want to be on stage. There's other purposes of like that they want to have a faceless business.
Right. No, you're right. There's actual legitimate reasons too. Like, for example, I learned a lot about this in the author community because it's 98% women. And shocking of all shockity shockers, there's a couple of douchey dudes out there that are a little violent, and it kind of sucks. And so there's some people who are in some pretty tight squeezes, and they're like, I'm an author, but if I come out here, then, this dude's going to find me. I'm like, ooh, that's awful. All right. How about hands only? And so that kind of literally, like, I did an entire thing for these folks on like teaching them how to do it, where they didn't show their face on these things. Now, obviously with, things like AI and whatnot, it's cool. But the inherent concept, like, for example, yes, I wrote vampire books and I did it under a female pen name and used my then wife's face to promote it. They weren't incredible. So it's on her now. But no, my point is, it doesn't need to be you. It's everything that I've been doing has been about like promoting other people and helping them promote themselves, and then creating an ecosystem that thrives around the conversation, and then letting them jump into the conversation and be like, hey, but what about this? Ooh.
Well,
and people really like that.
Let me ask you, Jonny, is like with this faceless, I've never done a faceless thing. And so with this faceless process, maybe my ego's too big, whatever. But like with the faceless process, do you, like with a Facebook group, for example, do you create a fake personality? Do you create a pen name and use that as your face?
You can.
Or but I'm saying, what do you do? Or do you?
I do. I have.
How are other real people instead and have them be the leaders in the community, or
I've done that too. And
Yeah.
you can. Yes.
Right,
The answer is yes.
Well, what do you
It
do?
doesn't matter.
Like,
It
what's
doesn't
the
matter
process
because
you
it's about the content. It's
Yeah.
about the content and the community. So whoever's the face of it doesn't matter. So it could be Jonny. It could be somebody in the community.
Yeah, I'll give you an
Or
example,
it
like a
could be an
real
AI, I guess.
Yeah, like a normal example from, now is like
Right.
the charcuterie thing. Yeah, sometimes I'll post as Jonny Andrews, yay, they don't care, I promise you. Most of the time I'll post as the International Charcuterie Association,
Right.
because I want to be able to grow the branding there. And that's another thing where it's like, I really call it like, tapping into more eyeball farms, where I look at, for example, Facebook pages, that's one eyeball farm. A group is another one, like search engine optimization. That's another one. YouTube, TikTok, all this stuff. You don't need them all at once. You want to publish everywhere you can, but in order for them to grow, you're going to have to put some focus into that, so I'd love to say that this is a completely passive, hands-free thing. And it is once you set it up. Like, for example, I might spend 30 minutes a month on the charcuterie thing. And there's brands that come in, pretty regularly asking, to promote. Like they see that and they're like, oh, how do we do this? And there's like, oh, there's a post. We got to contact, email this person. And when it comes to like all the author stuff, there's a link up there. And they're like, hey, buy some promotion. And they will. It's great. And it's pretty much every single day stuff is selling. And I don't do any of that because we've set up, SLPs and all this other kind of, that's all there is. And like when I want to add something in, I'll jump in. Like, for example, when I started doing the print on demand, I did that. It was a couple of months of some pretty intense focus. 125,000 later, I'd completely forgotten I'd done it. It's like, oh, there we are. And it's the same thing with, like, for example, when AI became a legitimate reality for so many people, I started playing around with it. And it's like, oh, this is kind of crappy. I wonder how I can fix it. And then, spent probably a week, way too many hours over the course of a week. But I figured out how to get our good buddy Chad to create very high quality articles. It's all about like breaking it up into chunks and having specific prompts for each. And those articles are ranking in Google now. It's like, especially for the charcuterie thing, it's sometimes it works for an industry and other times it won't. Like it does not work well in fiction, amusingly. So that is now an eyeball farm. And so the Charcuterie Association is getting very natural. I've never done anything like link building for that thing. I just put it up there and just let it happen. We'll publish the articles through social, maybe. And it's crazy because then they get shared really because they're great articles, because a lot of times they're written by AI, but then edited by a human. So it's because you have to do that.
We say bionic marketing. We've been saying bionic marketing since we learned the word. Yeah.
There you go. Exactly. It's crazy. So there's another eyeball farm. Ta-da! Yeah. SEO, and
what's interesting about this is I see an interesting compliment to kind of what Tellman and I are doing, which is like we're kind of high level where we're like, let's interview the experts. So we're saying go after the highest people that you can probably have access to on a public facing. And then you're saying create a community where whoever, users or, low level, it sounds bad, but lower audience, hungrier influencers are involved in it.
Less known.
Great. You had to think about it. I saw your face. So they're creating ongoing content because quite frankly, at this higher level, this interviewing a bunch of people, they're not those guys. Frank Kern. If you interviewed Frank, he's not going to go into some internet marketing group and constantly feed it content, but you can certainly take your interview and put it down into that Facebook group or whatever it ends up being. So anyway, I was going to get off on a different tangent, but we're already at an hour and 15 minutes, so I shouldn't do yet another tangent.
What have you done?
Yes. Well, I've let Jonny Andrews talk and tried to come back to things that we wanted to talk about. But I think we should, can we have you back sometime?
Yeah. I love doing this stuff like this. Yeah. Now that it's funny because, with the whole faceless thing, one of the big reasons, obviously the kids, You know, that was a thing, is like I wanted to be kind of very
Mm.
present for the family and stuff like that, because I had been doing, you know, traveling like 11, you know how it is, traveling 11 months out of the year, doing all sorts of stuff, and then, you know, working all the time. I'm like, I've got to figure out how to not.
Yeah, there's got to be a different
constantly.
way. Yeah,
You
right.
have 2 kids?
Yeah.
How old are they?
9 and 13.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So
Mine
now
are
that, you
almost
know,
20
life has
and
changed
18.
and they're older and all that kind of stuff, it's like, oh, you know what? I think because I actually enjoy teaching these
Yeah.
things. And it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
think I kind of missed this. I should
Right.
probably get out here and do this a little more. And also I'm finding that I don't suck at it. I was like, oh, well, look at that. I can help
No, you're
out.
pretty brilliant, to be honest with you, and it's
Oh,
really
you're
interesting.
sweet. Thank you.
You both have you're both really, really smart marketers, and and you have a million ideas, and you're both crazy enough to do this long form automatic clients sales letter. We're all going through it at the same time.
Oh God, that
you
was
know,
a lot, man. It's been over a decade since I've done anything like that. And I'm talking to Alan, like, dude, why did you do this?
Yeah.
Like, oh,
but
man.
it all
What was
makes
his answer?
sense. It all makes such good sense. Like it's such
That
a
was his
solid
answer,
system.
is because well, I mean, Alan is Alan.
It
So
worked.
it's funny because I'll fly out to North Carolina and go like hang out with Charles and Alan, you know, all the time. And we didn't touch on this, but like Alan and I came up together in the whole marketing.
Yeah, I
Like,
know
we would
that.
help
Yeah.
each other launch
Cool
products and stuff like that. It was absolutely crazy.
Alan had
crazy
some
time.
very biz-oppy things back in the day. Some, as
Oh, yeah.
Sean Casey would have said, aggressive marketing.
He was an aggressive marketer. It totally
Yeah.
was. Yeah, but no, he helped me out with the second launch of Money Siphon System, and that one was nuts. Like, it absolutely crushed it. Yeah, so we had a good time with that one. And then, yeah, went back and forth, just kind of helping each other with stuff, and then kind of fell off for a number of years. And Charles and I kept in contact quite a bit. In fact, he helped me out of a little pickle with a Google Ads pickup, and I was like, oh Jesus, man. So yeah, we actually got on the call with a rep, and he's like, oh man. I'm like, here, my firstborn child, take it. It's a good time.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, Tellman, do you have anything else to add or ask or anything like that?
What's the name of the new offer you're launching?
It's coming out soon. It's going to be called Faceless Business Empire.
Did anybody help you?
And it is a little biz-oppy. And that
did
was
anybody help you with that name? Did anybody?
I think you did. Yes, absolutely.
He's going to launch that on Warrior. Actually, that's going to probably be one of my first or second people that I've onboarded onto Warrior with a pretty decent size. Like Bill McRae's the other one. He's got one coming out, the AI stuff. Tellman,
Nice.
Remember we talked to Bill?
Yeah. He's been doing some social posts about that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the marketplace reacts to, something that actually works instead of
right. That's pretty different. Well, here, one of the fun problems, and I actually had this experience. I only got like 4 hours of sleep last night because of this. I went down the Instagram TikTok rabbit hole, and the minute I clicked on one thing about like AI and faceless content, it was like that's all I was getting. And I'm like, oh my God, these are amazing ideas. This is great. And like, so I've been doing this 20 years, and I'm so susceptible to all of that.
Yeah.
It's like I think the three of us are probably like the apex predator buyers of all things. It's like, oh my God, really? This is
Tellman's like Tellman's a believer. Tellman's a believer and a teacher that, like, if you want to break into a market, buy all the top people's stuff. Like, spend $100,000 on. He doesn't say that, but spend all you can on learning it and also connecting with the people.
And learn it and like become a star student of the people that you want to work with or whatever.
That's
like,
fair. Yeah,
it makes it like if you want to make friends with somebody and you actually know their work and like you can meet them halfway on it, it does make it a lot easier. If you don't have a name, if you're just, you know what I mean, if you're just breaking into something, like it worked for me.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So it's going to be called Faceless
what you were
Business
saying
Empire.
earlier. Yeah, with the Faceless Business Empire. Buy my stuff. Yeah, it's crazy because, like you were saying earlier, if it's based around a tactic or a technique, it burns out really quickly. And so probably by about 12:30 at night, I'm like, okay, I think I need to call it a day. But there was some good stuff in there, but it was all like the way that I look at things now. And what I'm trying to put into this whole product is that, okay, maybe that's a great idea, but that in of itself is not a business. Can you add it to your business to make it another channel for growth and sales?
Right.
That's the question.
Right. Cool. Well, it's been really great.
Question: if you actually have a business.
Or if you want to have a bit, he's frozen.
He
And
is
with
frozen.
with that, we say goodbye to Jonny Andrews.
Did we just
Perfect
cut out?
time.
What
Oh,
happened?
there he is. He's back. You're
No,
unfrozen.
you
You're
just
unfrozen.
froze for like 30 seconds, and it was a fairly good pose.
No, it was a good one. Yeah, you weren't too bad.
Oh, good. Exactly.
Nice.
That's what
Nice.
I love.
Cool. Johnny, it was great catching up. Super good interview. Definitely keep us posted. Do you have a date for when you're going to launch?
Not exactly like right at this minute, but my goal is to get it out within about 2 to 3 weeks.
I think you should make a firm commitment to the public right now on the day.
Right now?
Tellman. Oh yeah, Tellman. So should you.
You're right. So should you.
Look at that. No, I'm actually. What's amusing is I had forgotten that I have a process behind these product things, because again, it's been a long time where it's like I will hurl it out and then I'm going to look at it and go, something's missing. Right. And then I go and do a bunch more research and figure out like, where am I missing stuff? And then I go and like, so for example, I wrote the whole sales process, and as I'm writing the sales process, I'm like, I really need to pick up my product to make it fit the sales letter. And so I went back in, it's like, okay, how can I make this thing easier? Right. And then figure that out. And so it's like, what it's actually doing is it's forcing me to go back into my own businesses and be like, you know what, we can do this easier, faster, make more money. And it's kind of nice. So it's like I'm helping myself to help the people that'll buy the thing and then execute it. So yeah, it's working out. So within 2 to 3 weeks, it's going to be done and I'll roll it out, but you'll hear about it pretty quick.
Nice. Nice. All right. We're going to try to beat you to the punch. Ooh. We're going to try to launch before you. The race.
Well, I know how far along. I know how far along both of us are, and it will be neck and neck. To be honest, we're both very.
It's also that we're two people. You're one. So like.
We slow each other down, or we speed each other up.
Yeah, that's the question. We do slow each other down.
But Tellman also has 2 other AC funnels that he's trying to get going at the same time. So
yeah, but I have like 97 people up here, so it's we're good.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I've only met 3 of them. I feel left out. Yeah.
I'll introduce you to Gertrude one of these days.
Okay,
she likes to cook
and do charcuterie.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you again, and obviously we'll keep talking about Faceless Business Empire and Tellman. It's been good doing a call with you. This has been the fastest 80 minutes of my life. So I really it's a lot of fun, and get back to your lives. Don't do that. No nose picking on the show.
Exactly.
But
we'll have a separate episode, just a nose picking episode. It can be an exploratory interview.
We can get a bunch of AI generated and then loop them through into a video.
I love it.
Let's really keep it modern.
Watching that too. Yeah.
By the way, you like the newer version of Chad. He or she is willing to do what they're like. Basically, like when I told you flamboyant for the sports announcer, I said homosexual. I said I want a homosexual sports announcer, and it said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't think we're going to be able to do that." And then it just continued to do it. It just did it because the new AI, the new one, the one that's in preview, thinks. So it basically like it initially said no. But then it was like thinking. Okay, flamboyant. We'll use the word flamboyant instead of, and then it kicked it out. I
appreciate that function because I've been able to argue my way out of a bunch of like red screens of we cannot do that. That is violating. I'm like, how is this? And it's like you're right. Let's go ahead and do it.
It didn't have any problems telling me how to create a remote device. No, basically to blow up a pager remotely. Like I was like, how is that possible? And it said, oh, here's how. Here's 6 different ways you could do it without tampering. And I'm like, oh my God. So there's I mean, at least ChatGPT thinks that there's a few ways to just blow up a phone or a walkie-talkie in somebody's pocket. So
there are ways to do all sorts of things.
Indeed. Oh, we don't recommend that, by the way. We don't recommend blowing things up. So
absolutely not. We just got buried in the algorithm. Come on now. My God, man.
All right,
guys, everybody. Well, thanks so much for watching.
All right, guys. See you on Monday, 9 a.m. sharp for Tellman and Fellman.
With Matt Basak.
I
haven't talked to him in years. Say hi to him for me.
We will. Right, we will. Absolutely.
All right.
I haven't talked to him in years either.
Bye,
everybody.